As an ADHD parent, there is a way to walk into a school meeting and hand the other side of the table exactly what they need to ignore everything you came in to say. Most parents who do this don't even realize they did it. Today we're going to talk about what that looks like and how to stop doing it. I'm Leo. Welcome back to MyADHDAdvocate. I've spent over 30 years as a teacher and a school counselor. I have ADHD and so does my kid. I've sat on both sides of this table, and I want to walk you through exactly what happens in that room when a parent gets emotional, why it costs you more than you realize, and what you can do about it before you ever walk into that meeting. I've watched this happen so many times. A parent comes in, they've done their homework, they have notes, they have examples. They really know what their child needs, and they're ready to make the case for it. Then the meeting starts. The school team presents, and somewhere in the first 10 minutes, something the team says doesn't line up with what the parent has been watching from home for months. Maybe it's a grade that looks better on paper than it feels in real life. Maybe it's a teacher saying the child seems fine in class. Maybe it's the suggestion that things are improving when the parent knows that they're not. And the parent feels it, that specific feeling from sitting across from people who have authority over your child's future and realizing they're describing a kid you don't recognize. The frustration in you as a parent builds. The stakes start to feel higher, and at some point, your voice as the parent, it changes. Maybe it tightens, or maybe it breaks. Maybe you say something sharp or louder or faster than you meant to. You need someone in that room to actually hear and understand you. And that is the moment everything shifts. Not dramatically, but something real changes. But when you're in the middle of an emotional reaction, it can sometimes be easy to miss that subtle shift. So what's happening with the school team in that room? Most school teams are not adversaries. I want to be clear about that. Most of the people sitting across from you at a 504 meeting or an IEP meeting or even just a behavioral review meeting are doing their jobs. They're working with the systems that they were trained in, and most of them genuinely believe they're acting in your child's best interest. But they're trained formally or informally to manage situations, not just solve problems, to manage situations. When a meeting is running smoothly, the school team is in problem-solving mode. They are listening, responding, weighing information, considering options. That's the mode where things get decided in your child's favor. That's where you want the meeting. But when a meeting gets emotionally elevated, the team shifts, the tone shifts. They aren't trying to be cruel. They still want to help, but an elevated emotional environment triggers a different set of instincts. Suddenly, part of the team's bandwidth is no longer on your child's needs. It's on de-escalating the room. It's on mentally reviewing every action that they've taken to make sure that they're following policy. And here is what that costs your child. The moment the team shifts into situation management mode, the conversation about your child's actual needs gets smaller. Your arguments, even the correct ones, start being filtered through a different question. How do we get this meeting to a stable, amicable conclusion? Notice what's missing, because it's critical. Supporting your child has now taken a backseat to managing you. At the end of any parent meeting, the staff will often meet up for a debriefing session, as they should. But if the meeting got tense and emotional, they are definitely meeting about what happened. Now look, every school meeting generates some form of documentation. It might be just meeting notes or a summary of what was discussed, or it might be the formal papers that are required by a meeting. But there's a record of what was agreed to or not agreed to. That documentation reflects the meeting that happened, not the meeting you intended to have. If the last 20 minutes of an hour-and-a-half meeting were spent managing an elevated emotional situation, that is the impression that lives in the record. Not always explicitly. Schools are generally careful about how they document things like parent behavior. But I want you to notice the absence of specific things that you went into that meeting looking for, or the careful, neutral language, or the decisions that got deferred to a future meeting. Those are the fingerprints of a meeting that kind of went sideways. And here's why that matters beyond just the one meeting. The people in that room will be in the next room. The counselor who watched you lose your composure in October is the same counselor sitting across from you in February. The administrator who de-escalated that situation in that meeting in the fall is the same administrator who will be making decisions about your child in the spring. Institutional memory can be very long, and some very specific details might not be there. They might just exist as that spoken debriefing, never written down in the first place. But everyone who was there remembers. In later meetings, you might sense something as you meet with them. A feeling, a posture, a slight adjustment in how much benefit of the doubt you get when you make a request. You won't get to reset that easily, which means that the meeting you have today is also shaping the meeting you're gonna have 6 months from now. So let's talk about what you can actually do with this. I'm not gonna tell you to just stay calm. That's the advice everyone gives. But by itself, it's just not useful. Telling someone who's watching their child lose ground inside a system that wasn't built for their child and that they can't fully control to just stay calm is like telling someone with time blindness to just manage their time better. The advice isn't wrong, but it doesn't give you a tool. So let's get tactical. You want to know what triggers you before you walk in. Every parent has a specific thing that when the school says it, it sends their nervous system somewhere it doesn't need to go. For some parents, it's just the phrase, "We just need him to apply himself." For other parents, their trigger can be something like hearing that their child is fine at school, but they see what fine is costing their child when they're at home. For still other parents, it's the moment the team pivots to talking about the parent's anxiety instead of the child's needs. Name your trigger. Say it out loud before the meeting, to yourself or to whoever is with you. Because the moment you can name it in advance, you have a fraction more space between the trigger and the response. That fraction is where your leverage lives. Have a physical anchor for when you feel it coming. Not something that would require an explanation, something simple. Keep your feet flat on the floor, hands open on the table, a slow breath that nobody else can see. The goal from anchoring yourself is not to perform calm. The goal right then in that moment is to buy yourself 3 more seconds. 3 seconds is enough to choose your next sentence instead of just producing it. Have a sentence ready that buys you time without conceding anything. Something like, "I want to make sure I understand what you're saying before I respond." That sentence does 3 things simultaneously. It signals that you're listening, it slows the pace of the meeting, and it gives your nervous system a moment to come back online before you say the thing that you would spend the whole drive home wishing that you hadn't said. Now, none of these are the full system. I've been avoiding giving out just tips because what I just gave you is the tip of a massive iceberg. The full architecture of how to prepare for a high-stakes meeting, how to document in advance, or how to position yourself so that the school is responding to you rather than managing you, that is what I'm building right now. And when it's ready, the parents who have been here asking the right questions are going to be the first to know. If you're not on my newsletter yet, that is where this is going to land first. The link is in the description. And here's the thing I want to leave you with. Getting emotional in a school meeting is not a character flaw. It is a completely human response to a situation where the stakes are as high as they get. I mean, think about how important these things are. Your child's academic trajectory, their sense of themselves as a learner, or whether they get the support they need now or spend another year without it. Of course you feel it. Any parent who doesn't feel it isn't paying attention. I don't want you to ever stop feeling that, but it's time to get strategic about when and how it shows. When you walk in strategic, prepared, and clear about which facts matter, you stop being someone the school manages. You become someone they have to respond to. That is the difference between a parent who gets the support their child needs and a parent who needed to be heard but not helped. You deserve to be both. Fight like it.